Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I will be bringing you the data from over 500 teams sent to me by engaged managers, presenting that and showing you what the template currently is. If you enjoyed today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, for today's video, I sent out a post on X asking for all of your teams so that I could bring all of the data together and show you what is the chosen formation, what is the popular chip strategy, who are the highest owned players, and then at the end I'll be able to show you a template team as well. Over 1,000 teams were sent in. I managed to get to 500, and I don't normally talk about how much work goes into these videos, but for this one I will. This video has taken me probably over 12 hours from start to finish to put together, to get all of this data manually added to a spreadsheet and to get these percentages for you. So if there is one video where I'm going to ask you to please drop a like and make sure to subscribe, it's this one. If you appreciate the effort, I honestly like doing this. I'm a bit of a nerd, and I think the data has been really useful that I've managed to bring together. And when you see the template team, it is extremely strong. So yeah, we're going to go through each of those things today. Some people might ask, why do you bother doing this? There's an ownership section on the FPL site. A lot of people aren't engaged managers. They'll just pick whoever got loads of points last season. Some people would have auto-picked teams. Some people pick players because they like their names. This is much more useful to understand who are the engaged managers picking, who are the ones that are maybe quite lowly owned that might offer you an opportunity. This video isn't me saying that you should follow this template. It might actually offer the alternative, which is a way to go against the template. So we'll discuss all of that today. But yeah, if you could please subscribe, I would really appreciate it. So a good starting point is actually the formation. We'll look at the structure and then we'll start to look at which players are the highest owned. So from the 500 teams that I went through manually and looked at their formation, just over 50% were in a 3-5-2. This is by far and away, and when you'll see the players that are quite highly owned, those cheap strikers are, a 3-5-2 with a very cheap third forward seems to be the popular strategy at the moment in terms of structure of the squad. 3-4-3 was then, and this isn't a big surprise, 3 at the back has always been the most popular, but then 3-4-3 was the second most popular, surprisingly, in at around 25.6%. So there is a notable drop-off from 51.8 to 25.6. Then you can see after that, the third most popular formation was a 4-4-2 down at 12.4%. So basically, around 3/4 of managers are playing a 3 at the back. We've then got 4-4-2 as the most popular 4 at the back. And given defensive contribution points, given some of the prices of these really good defenders, there were a lot of really nice 4-4-2 drafts sent in. We then start to get below 5% for the likes of a 4-5-1, a 4-3-3, and then the most popular 5 at the back, which I've seen quite a few people go for. A 5 at the back with really good DEFCON defenders, 4 good midfielders and Ollie Watkins, for example. That was still 2.4% of managers had that 5-4-1 formation. So what does this tell me? This tells me that we are moving towards a kind of meta where there is a cheap third forward and a 3-5-2. If you want to go against the template, I think a 4 at the back does offer a nice opportunity because you can get yourself 6 excellent attackers rather than needing 7. Some of the defenders, they offer great value. You could go for 3 premiums and then 1 4.5 that will get good defensive contribution points, and that could easily outscore a 3 at the back. If, however, you're thinking, all I want to do is get decent amount of points, I want to sort of follow the template strategy, 3-5-2 definitely seems the most popular as of right now. So I think that's all we need to say on that, but it's good to try and get an idea before we look at the players of how are people structuring their teams. So the only other thing to discuss other than formations before we take a look at the players is the bench boost chip, because it is dominating a lot of our thinking, maybe wrongly so, maybe rightly so, but a lot of people are considering playing it early, and of course this does impact the players that you choose, especially those cheaper assets. Unfortunately, when people were sending in their teams, some people didn't provide context, and to be fair, I didn't ask for it, but also it's not easy to know straight away by looking at someone's bench when they plan on playing it. So what I did instead for this section is I just sent out a poll on Twitter or X asking, when do you plan on playing the bench boost? This has had, at the time of recording, over 3,500 votes, so it's a pretty big sample size. As of right now, 40.1% of people have absolutely no plan on when to play the bench boost. And by the way, this is a perfectly viable strategy. In fact, in my most recent team selection video that I released, and you can go check that out, I released it yesterday, I don't have a plan for my bench boost in that. I think that's fine. The bench boost is such an underwhelming chip anyway. In 2 of the last 3 seasons, I've had less than 15 points for my bench boost. There's only 1 season ever that I got over 30 points from a bench boost. I got 36 points. Ben Foster, that was how long ago it was. Ben Foster had a penalty save. I think he got like a 16 pointer that week, and it just massively boosted my bench. You need to get very lucky with the bench boost, but normally it's quite underwhelming. So I really like the strategy of going quite cheap on the bench, but not silly cheap, and just forgetting about it for now. Because it might be in the future, it just so happens that one of the more expensive players gets injured, you can downgrade them, some funds free up. The other point that we're all looking at is potentially around the AFCON time. Now, that is approaching the Christmas period. There'll be midweek deadlines, there'll be rotation, so it's not perfect. But during AFCON, obviously we're going to sell Mohamed Salah. That will free up funds. Even if you replace Salah with Palmer, you're still saving a few million that might allow you to build a slightly better bench boost. So I think this 40% of people are absolutely fine. I am one of them at the moment that are planning to have no plan. That is a viable strategy. The second most popular, as of right now, has actually shifted away from a Game Week 1 bench boost. So 30.8% of people are planning a Game Week 2 or Game Week 3 bench boost. Most of these are Game Week 2. And the simple reason for that, believe it or not, is Dubravka. And that might seem crazy to say that someone's entire chip strategy in Game Week 1 team is built upon a 4 million goalkeeper. But Dubravka, being first choice for Burnley and having Sunderland in Game Week 2, it just opens up that possibility, especially when you combine him with someone like a Steve, who also has Sunderland, right? You've then got, for 8 million, 2 defenders that can sit on your bench for the rest of time, other than that week in the bench boost, and they've got Sunderland for 8 million. Like, that is such great value. So I can understand why that is more popular now than Game Week 1. That isn't to say that Game Week 1 isn't a good strategy. I actually think on paper, if you ignore the Dubravka and a Steve picks, I think a Game Week 1 bench boost makes more sense, because a lot can go wrong in Game Week 1 that might affect your bench boost in 2 and 3. What happens if you were wrong about 2 or 3 picks and maybe they get 50 minutes and have an absolute stinker? Well, then going into Game Week 2, you might need to make transfers to even field 15. So yeah, I think Game Week 1 makes more sense on paper, but the fixtures and players align themselves better to Game Week 2. All of that to say, if you do want to plan for an early bench boost and you don't want to go with the 40% that have no plan, I do prefer a Game Week 2 to a Game Week 1 bench boost, just because I just think you can set your team up in a slightly better way. Finally, still 11.8% are planning a bench boost between Game Week 4 and Game Week 19. I think most of those are looking at 2 places. Game Week 11 and 12, I've seen a few people mention, and then, like I said, during AFCON. So realistically, what this means then is around half the game would have played their first bench boost by Game Week 3, of engaged managers, that is. So if you are falling behind and you're not happy with your rank after 4 game weeks, but you've not played a bench boost, free hit, or wildcard, and other people have played 2 or 3 of them, it's going to be very, very difficult this season, especially in the first half, to try and understand where your rank is at in relation to others, because a lot of people might play their chips slightly earlier, a lot of them might keep them a little bit later. So I thought this was interesting to present, but I think the formations and the bench boost now provides the context for us to take a look at the most highly owned players. So guys, you might have heard me talk about Club before, which is a free-to-play fantasy football mobile game for which I am a shareholder within the company. I've been playing for 15 months, but I'm also a character in the game, so I'm screen recording at the same time here. So I'll just show you, I am the director of football, one of the first people that you come across in Club when you set up your game and set up your club. It will be me, which I think is pretty cool as well. So it's a project that I am heavily involved with myself, and I would love to see as many people in the lead up to Game Week 1 downloading Club for free and giving it a go. It's basically like club ownership crossed with fantasy football, bit of Football Manager and FIFA in there. It combines a lot of all of the best games that we love, and we love fantasy football. And I think this is a really, really nice variation of that. So you can see my team at the moment on your screen. I am over my salary cap, which means my best players will refuse to play for me, like Watkins, Erdegaard, Gabriel. But I am building a very good squad. The best time to download Club is right now using the link down below so that you can set yourself up to be pretty good for Game Week 1. The longer you wait, the less chance you have of your club being ready for the start of the season. But yeah, I highly recommend downloading it. Also, make sure to join my league as well. The league is on the screen, so it's 3462SK7. You can copy that from down below, or you can just type that in. So 3462SK7. Make sure to join my league. I'll be doing shout outs throughout the season to those that are at the top. But what we're going to do now is we're going to meet with Agent Manny. This is the way that you get players in your team. So I had a few questions like, how do you build out your squad? You essentially meet with Agent Manny. So we're going to meet with him now, and he gets you different players from different rarities and different ratings. And the idea is you try and get the best players you can. This is going to be a one-take wonder. So this could either be a brilliant player or a terrible one. But we're going to meet with Manny now. So we get the rarity first. Is it core? It is core. Every time I record one of these videos, it's a terrible player. Wolves. This could be okay. Doherty. I mean, it would have been okay like 3 or 4 seasons ago. I'm just going to reject it. Do you know what? I can do one more meet now. Let's do one more meet now. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. Is it a good player? It's core. It's rare. Okay, this is at least a rare then. A rare forward. I've got a lot of good forwards is the only thing I will say. Newcastle. 82. Anthony Elanga. I'm not sure if I want... I'll tell you what, my front three, like you can see already my budget cap is an absolute... My salary cap's a mess. I'm all over my budget, but I've got Watkins, Kudus, João Pedro. I've even got Iliman and Di on the bench as well. Like, forwards aren't difficult to come by in club. Anyway, you don't need to hear me keep rambling about it. I would love for you to give it a download and try. Let me know what your teams are looking like as well. So first thing to do, use the link down below to join club. The second thing, once you've downloaded club, join my league via the code 3462SK7. I'd love to see as many of you playing as possible. So guys, this is when we get to the very interesting data. This is the data that took the most time to go through and analyze. So from the 500 teams that I went through on X, I have got the 10 most highly owned goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and forwards. So I've got their name and obviously badge if you're watching on YouTube, and I've got their percentage ownership rounded to the nearest whole number, just for a little bit of ease of viewing. There are some really, really interesting findings here. I should just caveat, I'm recording this during a lot of the preseason games on the Saturday, ready for a Sunday release. So if a player picks up an injury or isn't involved in the squad or something, and it sounds a bit weird that I've not mentioned that, I'm recording this on Saturday, the 9th of August. The other reason I mention that is one preseason game can completely change what we do. Like, one player goes out there and gets 4 goals, everyone wants them. One player maybe picks up an injury, it could completely change the structure. The transfer window is open, by the way, after game week 3. So a lot can change in that time. So we really need to try and remember that what is the template one day might not be the template come the next day. Like, in a week's time, these numbers could definitely change and develop. So let's just go through it. What I've done is I've highlighted the players that are in over 40% of teams, where they're starting to approach that like half of teams, or some of them above and beyond that, to show you the players that just kept popping up again and again. In all honesty, I probably could have just looked at 50 teams, because after 50, the same data trends kept coming up, the same players kept coming up. The statistics didn't really change too much. So starting with the goalkeepers, Dubravka is the highest owned goalkeeper at 83%. In fact, Dubravka is the second highest owned player in the game at the moment amongst engaged managers, 83%. And this makes sense. He is the only, as far as we're aware, fully nailed 4 million goalkeeper. So if you want to spend cheap and you're not maybe bench boosting 1, Dubravka's the guy. Obviously, if you're on bench boost 1, and as of me recording this, Perry still looks like he won't be fit for game week 1, maybe you go for Darlow at 4 million. But otherwise, Dubravka makes a lot of sense. The other most highly owned goalkeeper, the actual starter for most teams, is Sanchez at 46%. This is about what I expected. I'm seeing Sanchez in a lot of drafts. He's a cheap route into the Chelsea defence. Obviously, we do have news that Colwill has picked up an ACL injury, which might make them a little bit weaker. But I still feel like Sanchez is an excellent pick. So about half of teams having Sanchez, that makes sense to me. We then have Kelleher at 26%. I will note, he picked up a small knock recently, and he was omitted from their recent squad as a precautionary measure. Should be fit for game week 1, but just keep your eye on that. We'll, of course, discuss that throughout the week. But at 4.5 million, Kelleher is the most popular. You've then got Sells at 17%. So for those that want the 5 million but don't go for Sanchez, we've got quite a few people, almost a fifth of managers going for Sells. And then Darlow at 9%, and then you've got like Petrovic, Verbruggen, Raya, Areola, Kinski, all below 5%. So I think it's very clear. People are going for one of Sanchez, Kelleher, Sells, and Dubravka on average. Some people are combining 2 of them. I saw quite a few people go for like Verbruggen and Kelleher as a pairing, which I quite like. So there is definitely some variation around that. But as you can see, Dubravka is very, very clearly the most highly owned. With regard to the defenders, there was a very, 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 very clear template back 4 or 5. So, the most highly owned defender was a Steve. I find this hilarious that the most highly owned goalkeeper and the most highly owned defender both play for Burnley. But again, that's because a lot of people are looking at bench boost too, or they just want 2 nailed 4 million assets. And Burnley did defend relatively well last season. I'll be honest, I think Trafford saved them a hell of a lot. And I think Leeds, actually, Melier, cost them a lot. I think the difference between Burnley and Leeds was just simply Melier versus Trafford. So I don't think that Burnley are necessarily much better than Leeds. I think you could go for a Leeds defender like Goodmanson or Bijol, who'll be fit for game week 2 or available from game week 2. You've got Rodon as well. There are lots of decent Leeds 4 million defenders you could go for. But for that reason, a Steven Dubravka are in a lot of teams. I was arguably the most shocked percentage for me out of all of these players was Van der Ven at 46%. Basically, half of managers have got Van der Ven. Now, I've got Pedro Porro in my latest team. I understand wanting a Spurs defender, and he is the cheapest one. He's pretty nailed on. He might get you a couple of DEFCON points, might be better for clean sheets under Thomas Frank. Got Burnley at home in game week 1. Like, there are good reasons, but still half of managers. Is Van der Ven that much of the standout 4.5? Like, the next highest owned 4.5 was Juve at 35%. So that shocked me, But if you want to cover the template and you don't want to get punished by the active managers around you too much and you want to sort of cover that ownership, then it might be worth having a Spurs defender, which is pretty crazy to say. But again, they're going to be a very different team under Thomas Frank than they were under Ange Postecoglou. The next highest owned was Nico Williams for 44%. I should note, at the time of recording this, a few hours ago, we just got news that apparently Forest are preparing a bid for Leif Davis. Nico Williams plays left back for Nottingham Forest. It could be that Davis is only there as backup and doesn't start at all. But it would seem strange to me that he would sign for a team where he doesn't think he's going to get any available minutes in terms of starts. And of course, they're in Europe. So it might be that it might be that Leif Davis is preferred in Europe. However, I also don't see that because I think they'll want to do really well in Europe. So surely they'll play their first choice, Nico Williams. All of that to say, Nico Williams will still be first choice. He'll still get good minutes. And it's great that he can play right back or left back. So it might even be that it's Ola Aina's minutes that go a little bit lower and actually Williams shifts to right back. I don't want to scaremonger. I still think at 5 million, Nico Williams offers amazing value. But if they do get Leif Davis or they look to go and get out another left back, it might be enough to just try and make me find that extra 0.5 for Murillo or Milenkovic. Van Dijk is the most highly owned at 6 million defender at 43%. I can understand that. Good for clean sheets, good for DEFCON, a little bit of traditional attacking threat, not as much in recent seasons. And Liverpool just such a brilliant team. I can absolutely understand wanting a route into that Liverpool defence. So Steve, Van de Ven, Williams and Van Dijk are all in over 40% of teams. That is the template for defenders. And then there was some variety in and around that. Juve is up at now 35%. So just over a third of the managers' teams that I looked at had Juve. And you can see Wan-Bissaka down at 17. This is why it's interesting to look at engaged managers versus just the game, because Wan-Bissaka is owned by a third in the game and Juve's down at 1 or 2%. So I think that this is probably more reflective of what we'll see amongst those top managers. Juve just has more attacking threat. Wan-Bissaka will be safer for minutes. He'll be better for DEFCON. But Juve is basically just like a left winger, and he has more quality on the ball for me in those attacking positions than Wan-Bissaka. He had 9 attacking returns in the league last season for Slavia Prague, 7 of which, by the way, were goals. This is an attacking man. So I really like the idea of him. He's in my latest draft as well, so I can't really criticise that. We've then got Richards, Tarkowski, Konsa, Murillo, and Wan-Bissaka as the 5 after that are all around that 20% ownership. Tarkowski, great for DEFCON, good opening fixtures. Konsa will tick along nicely. Murillo and Milenkovic were both in and around that sort of 15 to 20%. Milenkovic didn't quite make it on the list. So yeah, there is a very clear template. So if your defence right now is a Steve, Van de Ven, Williams, Van Dijk, and Juve, you essentially have the template back 5. In the midfield, there was a couple of surprising results in it for me. Palmer is the highest owned player in the game amongst those 500 teams that I looked at 85%. More than Salah, more than even the legendary Martin Dubravka, 85% for Palmer. So lots and lots of people have him in the team. I can understand that. There's no reason really to omit Palmer in terms of price. You could just get rid of a Salah or a Haaland. So a lot of people, even when they went for Haaland rather than Salah, they still had Cole Palmer in there. So I think it's worth starting with Palmer at his price, with his fixtures, with penalties. I do think Palmer's better on the right, and he keeps playing him into the 10, so that's not ideal. But I still feel like he'll just have a really strong start to the season. And we know what Palmer can do on his day as well. He's a scary guy not to own, so I can get it. That means then that Salah was down at 76%. And I say down, that's still very high. But that means a quarter of FPL managers right now, in those engaged ones, do not own Mohamed Salah. Again, I don't hate this though. Some of those were no Salah, no Haaland. Some of them chose Haaland instead, which we'll discuss in a second. But it does mean that Salah's not going to be owned by literally everyone. There are definitely people this season, due to his price, that are willing to go without him. And I don't mind that at all. You've then got 2 very popular picks, both above 40%, in Iliman Ndiaye and Anderson. These at 44 and 43 respectively. I do think Ndiaye is one of the better 6.5 million mids. I like him a lot. He's got good opening fixtures. The only thing putting me off right now is traditionally his data has not been very good, and there are rumours that potentially he could be leaving Everton. They're not very strong rumours, but Inter Milan are apparently offered the ability to sign him. Apparently they're looking at some other players right now, but just with Everton signing Dewsbury Hall, they're looking at Jack Grealish. There are a lot of rumours right now that Everton is trying to sign a lot of attackers. So maybe that is preparing for the inevitable. Maybe they know that Ndiaye is going to leave. I don't know that for certain, of course. But it just would worry me a little bit. Again, given that the transfer window is still open after game week 1. I still think, though, he's top 3, 6.5 million mids Ndiaye, so I like him. And then Elliot Anderson is just a steady Eddie 5.5. Good for DEFCON, good for minutes, great opening fixtures for Nottingham Forest, okay data. It'll tick along nicely with DEFCON points, the odd assist here and there. It'll get clean sheet points because Forest defend really well. I can understand why those 4 midfielders have been in a lot of teams, especially at their relevant price points. Then, the fifth midfielder that's been most common in most teams is actually Florian Wirtz, up at 32% of teams. Now, again, I'm recording this before the Community Shield. If he has a good game then, I can imagine his ownership will shoot above 50%. I'll be honest, if he steps up in that game and delivers returns, looks fantastic, gets 80, 90 minutes, it's going to be difficult to go past that because Liverpool are just such a functional attack. This is the concern going for someone like a Bruno Fernandes. How functional Man United going to be with all of these new signings? Like, they've got the talent there, but you just know that Liverpool functions so effectively. Arne Slot has got such a good system in place there. They've maintained a lot of the same players from last year. So chuck one of the best, most talented young footballers in the world into a team like that. It is difficult to overlook him. I can understand that. And 8.5 million could arguably be underpriced. So I get it. After Florian Wirtz at 32%, you've then got Rodgers and Fernandes at 24 and 23, Gakpo at 20, and you've got the likes of Marlon and Kudus a little bit lower. So if people aren't going for Florian Wirtz, it's to chuck someone like a Morgan Rodgers, a Fernandes, or a Gakpo in there. I think all three of those could offer really nice value as well. For the forwards, 66% of people have Ollie Watkins. So 2/3 of managers have Watkins in their team, which again is crazy because on the official FPL app, he's down at about 17%. That's a stark contrast, right? So engaged managers really like Watkins. He offers a nice price point. He's been very good in pre-season. And Villa have very strong opening fixtures overall. So I can get Watkins being in there. And then the most common partner for Watkins is actually Guiu at Sunderland for 44% of teams. This can now, if I go back to the 3-5-2 data that I presented, around 50% of people having a 3-5-2, they have Watkins, one other forward, and Guiu. That seems to be the template right now. To just take a little bit of money out of the forward line, out of the bench, and then be able to invest that around the midfield. So yeah, there is no really, I wouldn't say there's a proper standout third forward to go with Watkins and Guiu, but those two certainly are. The most popular just about is actually Jarrod Bowen at 34%. So again, 1/3 of managers have Jarrod Bowen in their team. Again, nice price point, good opening fixture, super reliable, looked good in pre-season. I get Jarrod Bowen. Erling Haaland, 1/3 as well. So 33% of managers have Haaland, which is crazy. He offers such a brilliant opportunity. Lowly owned amongst the overall database, lowly owned amongst engaged managers, and one of the players with just a ridiculously high ceiling. Haaland can get 51 points in 3 weeks. He can get back-to-back hat-tricks. Easy. Like, he has that in his locker, and not many players do. So I really don't mind the Haaland-only drafts. You've then got a couple of other popular, actually 3 popular players below that sort of Bowen ownership level, which is Strand Larsen, João Pedro, and Chris Wood, all around 20%. So these are the more popular ones. If you can't afford Watkins, Bowen, and Guiu, and you want a slightly cheaper third forward, Strand Larsen, João Pedro, Wood are in there. Strand Larsen in particular, I'm surprised is that high, but I kind of get it. Should be on penalties. Good fixtures after game week 1. He should be pretty nailed on. When Cunha wasn't in the squad last year, he was very good. I like Strand Larsen a lot. You've then got to go down sort of below 10% for the likes of Evanilson, Solanke, and Welbeck. So there we go. Sorry for that quite a long section, but this is kind of the meat of it. This is what I wanted to discuss. These are the highest owned players amongst those engaged managers. Now, I'm not saying that the 500 teams that I analysed on X is the best sample, but by no means, right? This isn't exact science. It might have been if I carried on going to 1,000 that these percentages changed. But I think this starts to give us a very, very good idea of which players are forming the template. Not that I think there is necessarily a huge one. Like, look at this. There's not a single defender above 50%. There's only one forward above 50%, which was Watkins. After Guiu, there is no forward over 35%. Even in the midfield, right? If you take away Palmer and Salah, no players over 50%. So whilst there is a template starting to emerge, it's certainly a weaker one in terms of the amount of people that have that team than we've seen in recent seasons. So all of that yapping out the way, let's now take a look at how you could put all of these players together in a team and what that template 15 would look like. So guys, last season when I put together the template team, because I did this video last season, you couldn't afford all of the highly owned players. Like, you had to sacrifice somewhere and put a slightly lower owned player in to be able to afford it within the 100 million budget. I'm pretty sure, and apologies if I'm wrong, I think I've literally put in the 2 most highly owned goalkeepers, the 5 most highly owned defenders, 5 most highly owned midfielders, and the 3 most highly owned forwards. So I think these are literally the 15 most highly owned players you can have, and it is exactly 100 million, which is bonkers to me. Like, it fits perfectly in the squad. This team, I put it into Fantasy Football Hub, and it gave it a team rating of 97%, which goes to show you that it probably is the template for a reason. If you want to get your own team rated for free, by the way, there will be a link down below in the description. You can just upload your team for free. It takes about probably 10 to 20 seconds. Get your team rated, and let me know what your percentage is. Can you beat the 97% template team? So to read this out, we've got Sanchez in goal and obviously Dubravka. These are the players I've just discussed, but to look at it as a team, the back three is Van Dijk, Van de Ven, and Williams. You could, of course, play Juve, who's on the bench. I probably would, but he was the lowest owned, so that's why I put him down a little bit. But Van Dijk, Van de Ven, Williams is really, really good. A midfield five then of Anderson, Palmer, Njai, Salah, and Wirtz, and then a front two of Bowen and Watkins. That then means that the bench includes two 4 millions, a 4.5, and two 4.5s. You basically spent the bare minimum on the bench, bar an extra 0.5, just having a slightly stronger fourth defender. So it is very, very budget on the bench, but this team is unreal. Like, it's such a good team. Such a good front two. You've got Palmer, Salah, and Wirtz. Your two cheaper assets are pretty nailed on, assuming Njai doesn't leave, in Njai and Anderson. The back three has a combination of, it's got good fixtures, good def potential. You've got some attacking threat with Juve on the bench. The goalkeepers look... It's just a really, really strong team. It's kind of annoying when a template is strong. But again, what I really like about this season is, as much as this is the template, and that's the whole point of me doing this video, I'm surprised that, like, last season, I don't know if you remember, I did this video and Isak was at like 99%. We had quite a few players at like 80, 70, 60. Apart from a few of the cheaper assets, and maybe like Palmer, Salah, Watkins, there are a lot of like 40 to 30%. So you have a real opportunity this season to do something a bit different. And even if you were to follow something similar to this, you are still going to gain on a lot of managers around you, because there are so many ways to structure your squad. So yeah, this is really promising. I've loved this preseason so far. I've still got obviously a few days left to go yet as well. But I think this is a strong squad overall. I do not recommend that you copy this. That is obviously your own choice, but I wouldn't recommend copying it. But maybe use it as a bit of inspiration. Look at the structure of the squad. Look at the players that we've picked. Maybe if you've got a player that isn't on this list, right? Maybe think, why are they not? Like, for example, Arsenal defenders were nowhere to be seen. Is there a reason for that? Do you think that's an opportunity you could have? I didn't see any Gyökeres or Saka. There was no Arsenal at all, in fact. There was very few Man City players. Like, you might see these as opportunities, and absolutely fantastic if you do. Let me know what you think of this template team, and let me know if you think you can beat it. So guys, there we have it. That is the template team according to the data from over 500 FPL managers over Onyx. Thank you to everyone that did send in their team. I really do appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this video and you got some entertainment or use out of it, please do smash that like button. But more importantly, please do consider subscribing if you appreciate the effort. I will do this every preseason if people continue to enjoy it, because I'm a bit of a nerd after all. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye-bye.